What's going on, people? Welcome back to the channel. So breaking news coming out of Celtic this evening. Brendan Rodgers has resigned as a Celtic manager after 2.5 years in charge of the Parkhead club. The Northern Irishman has decided to resign from Celtic after a difficult start to this season. I am not surprised, to be honest. I didn't think he'd see out to the end of the season. I think the board have said to him, look, it's got to a point now where if you don't win the next 2 games, you're going to be sacked. So I think Brendan has got to a point where he's thought, you know what? Why should I bother? You know, this squad is fucking atrocious because of the board. You know, the board, you know, they should be resigning as well. You know, Rodgers leaving is only part of the one part of the problem out of the building, I think. I think the board are fucking useless. O'Neill and Maloney, temporary charge is, again, that's just stinking of Dermot Desmond. I'm sorry, that's nowhere near good enough. You know, none of them two. O'Neill's been done as a manager since his days at Aston Villa. And Maloney, if he gets a job permanently, I'm going to go absolutely fucking off my nuts because he's shit as a manager. I don't care that he was the assistant to Martinez at Belgium. The guy's a terrible manager in his own right, terrible at Hibs and terrible at Wigan. What makes him as a calibre to be the Celtic manager is pathetic from Celtic. They're a pathetic bunch of fucking people, the board. That AGM, you can understand why the AGM wasn't announced. You know, obviously something was going to happen and this was it. You know, Rodgers has resigned. It's, you know, it's a sad day for him. I'm sure he didn't want it to end this way. But again, you know, the football was bad. You know, he lost the dressing room, I think. He done the right thing, you know, for Celtic. You know, he hasn't signed an agreement to not say anything about what happened this season. Under his last season, it's turned out, you know, I think personally he should just come out and say it out. Is look, the board are the real fucking problem with Celtic Football Club. They don't give a fuck about the supporters. They don't give a fuck about ambition. You know, I wanted to push the club on in Europe. After we had a great season last year, the board didn't fucking listen to me, and this is what fucking happened. Absolutely pathetic from the board. I wish Brendan the best. I hope he goes off and is happy somewhere else. You know, it is disappointing. You know, as I said, O'Neill apparently is only in there temporarily. You know, but Maloney's already in the club. You know, what happens if Maloney wins the next 5 games? Will he get the job permanently? If he gets a job permanently, that's an absolute dereliction of duty because the players weren't listening to Brendan Rodgers. You know, a Premier League experienced manager. What makes him think? The board think they're going to listen to Maloney, you know, a fucking reject of a manager. He's no good. He's not good enough. He's not good enough. You know, Lennon should never get the job a 3rd time. What he said on Sky Sports about this board on Sunday was an absolute joke. Just kissing their ass. You know, Maloney shouldn't get the job permanently. Neither should Kennedy. Neither should Lennon. O'Neill shouldn't get it. You know, all these people, you know, this is the problem with fucking Dermot Desmond as the majority shareholder and the boards. They go for Irish people who have been at the club before. You know, there's no ambition there whatsoever. You know, do you honestly think the fans are going to buy that? There needs to be mass protests for the game against Falkirk on Wednesday night. I'm sorry, but that's what needs to happen. You know, to prove to the board, you know, yeah, Rodgers may have gone, but, you know, you're still there. You know, you remain the major problem. As I said, you know, they're destroying the club every single season. They're amateurish. You know, they're pathetic. Desmond needs to fucking go. You know, I don't care what anybody says. So does Lawwell and so does Nicholson and so does Mackay. They all just need to go. You know, it's all right saying Rodgers has left and he's resigned, but why are the fucking board not resigning? You know, the fans don't want you. This is what annoys me. The fans don't want the board there, and yet the board are staying there. I know they're getting paid a ridiculous amount of money to be the board of the football club, but still, they're not making the club any better. They need to go. They need to go as well, you know. But yeah, Brendan Rodgers has left. Be interested to see what happens with the team now. The team is pathetic. I still don't think we're going to win any games anytime soon. No fucking chance with Maloney in there and O'Neill. You know, with all due respect to Martin O'Neill was a great manager. But when he was the manager, it was different times, you know. And he's not been a manager since he was the manager of the Republic of Ireland. That was over 5 years ago. I am shocked that Roy Keane wasn't announced as the assistant. If Roy Keane was announced, that would be even worse. You know, because Roy Keane, even if he's just an assistant at a club, he always causes fucking issues, you know, and doesn't last long, you know. I just don't think this is the right move for Celtic, you know, to bring O'Neill back, you know, and bring in Maloney. I don't know if Kennedy's going to stay Hopefully Kennedy's gone as well. You know, Kennedy's a major problem as well. So's Gavin Strachan. I'm so annoyed at this board for the way they've treated the supporters this year, the way they've treated Rodgers twice now. Peter Lawwell is massively responsible for this as well. I don't care what anybody says. He doesn't have day-to-day running of the club bollocks. You know, his influence at the club is a fucking negative. Michael Nicholson's an inept fucking CEO and useless. It really is pathetic. This club is going absolutely nowhere as a football club. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Ange is the next manager. You know, again, I don't think that's right. I like Ange, but you know, we need to go forwards, not backwards as a club. You know, Birdo Glint, Knutson, his contract's up in December, but you know, is he really going to leave Birdo Glint, who are in the Champions League, to come to us? I doubt it, unless he gets packing from the sport, which ain't going to happen. Let's be honest. But yeah, if Rodgers has left, I want to say congratulations. Well, thanks to Brendan for his success. You know, Europe was brilliant last year. We were so unlucky against Bayern Munich. That was the best performance we've had in an away performance in a while. In Europe, possibly ever. We deserved extra time in that game. You know, he won us titles again. He won us cups. You know, it's just this season it's petered out because of the board, and it all started with that Kairat Almaty game. You know, absolutely horrendous in the Champions League qualifier. But yeah, I wish Brendan the best. But yeah, disappointing that he's gone. But what can we do? This season's going to be a fucking disaster anyway. You know, O'Neill and Maloney, they're not going to bring anything fucking positive to this fucking team, I don't think. Particularly Maloney, because he's just been a disaster everywhere he's been. But yeah, that's my response to Brendan leaving. So thanks for watching this video. Take care. I'll see you guys with a reaction to the Falkirk game on Wednesday. Well, I won't be watching it, but I'm not watching any games for the rest of the season, as I said, until the board are fucking removed. But yeah, I'll watch the highlights and give you my thoughts. Take care. Peace.